Anybody who wonders what's been taking me so long to get going on the car, I've had to redo the wiring harness, and I put in a PDC fuse box. So I put in a PDC fuse box from a 93 Daytona, and I had it integrated into the wiring harness, and the wiring harness was a 90 Daytona and a 2006 Cherokee, Grand Cherokee. So I didn't have schematics for the Cherokee, and I had to kind of figure out how everything connected the way they had it. So fortunately, I think I got it all set up now, but it was a long time. I had to kind of make schematics not knowing for sure exactly how it was wired, and then trace wires from the front of the car to the back of the car, and it wasn't fun. And of course I had distractions and things that got in the way, and it was just a time suck. But I think I now have it documented, and I just have to clean up a little bit of the lengths and put them into sheathing, but it should look nice and hopefully work first shot. The other thing that's happened is I got back into motocross. So at 68 years old, after 25 years of being out of it, I decided it was time to get back in it. And this is like a fountain of youth. If you've never ridden motocross, it's a blast. It can be intimidating, but it's definitely worth it, and I'm having fun again. There's a lot of things I hated to do on this car that I knew I needed to, and one of them was pulling the oil pan. I have found out that the oil capacity is about 6 quarts, so that's good. I was surprised at that because the pan is so small, but fortunately it's got a big capacity. So the reason I pulled the pan, twofold. Number one, I had a slight leak up around here somewhere, and I wanted to fix that. The other reasons, I wanted to see where the dipstick measured, and obviously you want the oil to be below the crank. I wanted to see where it actually laid. And of course it's on the other side of the stick. So right there, you can see it in the light, that's the fill line. So yeah, that's pretty much right at the bottom of the crank. Good job on their part getting that set up. The other issue is when I put the dipstick out, when I pull it out and I put it back in, it's always catching. And now I can see why. At least I think I can. I don't know if it's catching here on the pan or where, but I'm going to play with that and see if I can find out why. It is a long pull. As you can see, the line goes all the way up, around, and up. So it's got to be 3 feet long. And like I say, it's always snagged somewhere down in here. So I'm going to try to fix that too. So that'll be 2 things. At least I'll have peace of mind that the level is correct, and that if I can stop that leak wherever that came from. It's just a slight little drip, but don't want that in the driveway. And should be good to go. I've got the windage tray out of it, and now I've got to scrape off all the gasket material. I think my leak was over in here somewhere. At least that's where it was dripping out. So this is what a 5.7 liter looks like with the windage tray off. And once I get it cleaned up, I've decided I'm going to put a remote well, not a remote oil filter, but an oil accumulator tank on this one. Just 1.5 quarts, like I did on my other car, but I'll have to get a sandwich plate in here to extend the oil filter down, and that should help with potential non-oiling issues if I run into any G loads or anything. So doesn't need it, but you never know. So it's insurance. So things look good down here, and hopefully have this back together today. One of the things I've had to do was these heater tubes. One of the things I had to do was these heater tubes that are steel lined come out of the water pump, and normally they go straight up. And the problem with that is there's so much going on behind the intake manifold, there isn't really room for them. So what I did was reoriented them to be 90 degrees, so they go to the side, flow under the head, and then over to the heater bypass valve to go into the heater core. So hopefully that's going to free up some space for me behind the engine, especially behind the intake manifold. So not that big a deal. They just pull out and have O-rings that go in. One of the things when you're doing these projects that gets frustrating are the small things. Now, I had to put in heater hoses to the diverter valve that goes to the heater core, and you have a lot of custom bends in here. So what I did, I wanted to get good hoses, brand new ones. So to get the bends, what I did was went to the junkyard, bought some junk old hoses and different curves and so on, and then I used copper tubing fittings. These are 5/8 ID, and I put the copper tube fittings in to make whatever correct hose orientation I needed, and then went to a few auto parts stores, and they let me go through their collection of hoses and get whatever I could that matched up. So this is the final result of what worked pretty well. I got 2 coming into the heater core and then 2 going back to the engine. The only issue I had was there's a bolt for the heater core itself coming through here for the plenum, and that would be rubbing on the hose. So what I did was took a small piece of tubing, put that in there, and that should allow it to move a little bit and not chafe it. So I think it'll last a long time. When I did have the engine out, one of the things I had done was these tubes coming out of the engine were straight up on both of them. So I redid them to be 90 degrees sideways, planning to push everything over here and then bring it up to the diverter valve. And that might have worked, but I should have done about 45s, and that would have made life a lot easier. Tubing would have been shorter and less curvy, but I made it work. It's just, you're looking at half a day's work, probably a full day when you get done with all the running around I had to do. But you know, it's funny, but you get these issues that drive you nuts, even though they're little things. And this one was the oil dipstick for the engine. And the problem is, it was the correct length, but it was hard to get down into the tube. It would actually hang up in 2 spots as you tried to thread it in. So you can see it comes out this end. It's been so long that I've been working on this car. A lot of my videos turned to junk because the camera decided it was going to fast forward them, and you go through the whole thing and then think you've got hours worth of video filmed, only to find out that it's silent and it's fast forwarded, and it's just a matter of frustration. So I probably didn't show it, but when I put the engine in, I took it out and put it in, I did it from underneath. And to do that, I made this framework up, put a Harbor Freight winch on it, and then made up an engine plate that I could put a chain on. I think I showed this in one of the videos, maybe not, may have gotten lost. So I'll just recap everything quick. So I put this on top of the engine instead of the intake manifold. Put a chain to the winch, and then disconnected the engine and dropped it down through the bottom, and worked pretty well. I've had the engine in 2 or 3 times over the winter, fitting things and mocking them up and all, so it made for quick work, trying instead of using the old cherry picker. Pulled many an engine in here with that one. So that's how I did it. I just wanted to recap it. That's it for this week. So when you've got the dipstick out, it's curled, and that gives it some extra strength, I guess, or it allows it to twist around corners. But like I say, it wouldn't go in the end, and I thought maybe I had actually made it worse when I put the gasket maker in the oil pan, that maybe I had clogged up part of the hole. So luckily I was able to pull the tube out, and it wasn't that hard. A couple bolts and it was out. So what I did was I went to the junkyard and I got a super long dipstick out of a Caravan, and I'm not sure what engine that went to, but it's actually, if you look at it, 2 dipsticks riveted together. So, and it's also heavier duty. It's straight, but it's really twice as thick almost as the original. So I figured this would work, and I tried shoving it in, and it still had the same problem. It wouldn't make it around the bend. So as I got looking at it, the problem is where they put the O-ring, they crimped the tube for the O-ring, and that actually made the inside diameter too small for the dipstick to fit through. So I started working my way up with drill bits, and I was able to open that up probably 1/16 of an inch, and now I can get the dipstick down through there, even the original and the newer one. So I'm not sure what I plan to do, if I'm going to modify the new one or just stay with this one. For now I'll probably stay with this one, it'd be the easiest. But at least now it works. The O-ring's still intact, there's no hole in the pocket. So just like I say, one of those things that it's just time consuming to get all these little items sorted out, but necessary.